Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we get to do one of my favorite things that we do on the show prior to week one of every NFL season. Today we are doing a tier ranking of every NFL starting quarterback and some backups included. So the top of the top, who are the elite quarterbacks in the NFL? Going to rank it all the way down to the top, to the bottom of the barrel, the gutter trash, the person you never want quarterbacking your team. Going to break down every team starter, a handful of backups, and we're going to give it to you, and I think, in one of the most analytical ways possible in a tier ranker. But the tiers that we have, you can see on the screen on YouTube or on the audio podcasting platforms. I'll read them off for you right now. Elite is the very top of the top. There's great. There's good with great potential. There's just simply good quarterbacks, guys you like, aren't going to be great, but can hopefully keep your franchise afloat. Then there is the any given Sunday tier. That is one of the most polarizing tiers in the entire NFL. Guys that one Sunday can give you elite status. The next week, you're like, oh my God, why is he quarterbacking our team? Below that is a strong foundation with potential that usually is inclined or kind of reserved for rookies, maybe some veterans that are starting to grow in their youth in the league. Below that is retirement home. You'll understand that a little more in a second. Then I have the last four tiers: placeholder, backup with starting potential, backup and nothing more. Then the final tier, a tier reserved for the worst of the worst, the simple "you suck" tier in today's tier maker. Hope you guys can like and share and subscribe to the show on the audio podcasting platforms. Give us a 5-star review. And let's start tier ranking every starting quarterback in the NFL, because the NFL begins on Thursday. Philadelphia against the Dallas Cowboys continues on Friday and on into your Sunday, then the following Monday. So this is NFL Week 1, and this is our Week 1 NFL quarterback tier ranker. And let's kick things off with the top of the top. Who are the elite quarterbacks in the NFL? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You probably already know who I'm going to pick here, but number one in the group, you can maybe call this the Mahomes tier. It's Patrick Mahomes. He's awesome. He's incredible. Who doesn't love themselves some Patrick Mahomes? He is by far one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. But who's joining Patrick Mahomes in this tier? Let's go ahead and put the two-time MVP Lamar Jackson in the tier with him. And alongside those two, we will give Josh Allen elite status, the former Madden cover of last year's game. And then Joe Burrow, maybe one of the most polarizing quarterbacks when it comes to deciding, is he elite? Is he great? Is he average? I think Joe Burrow, if you will, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I know he has T. Higgins. I know he has Jamar Chase and Chase Brown, a very underrated pass catching back out of the backfield, but he is a tremendous player. I think that Joe Burrow, to me, is an elite quarterback in the NFL. Accompanied with him, of course, is Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. Now, here's where things get tricky, because I don't think labeling those four guys as the Mount Rushmore of the NFL right now, if you will, is too crazy. I'm going to try to rank tiers elite, great, good with potential, and good in order within the tier to give you a better indication as to where I view each quarterback in the NFL tier ranker. And I'm going to move around some guys in the elite tier because I believe only one of these quarterbacks needs to get moved. The question is, which one? Is it Joe Burrow? Is he going higher? Josh Allen? Lamar Jackson? Or does Patrick Mahomes fall? And I think right now I would have a Lamar Jackson ahead of Patrick Mahomes in my tier ranker. Yes, I think Lamar Jackson is, in fact, the best quarterback in the NFL. I think he is the hardest quarterback to scheme against, to scheme for, to stop. He is awesome. He is incredible. The legs, the mobility, good arm talent. I know there have been some falters or faltering in the playoffs. It's not all Lamar's fault. I think he is right now in 2025 the best quarterback in the league, with Patrick Mahomes being right behind him, then Josh Allen being number 3, then Joe Burrow being number 4. I think Lamar through Allen is much closer than people want to give credit for, and Joe Burrow, I think, does have some distance between him and the number 3 spot, which is Josh Allen. But your top 4 are Lamar Jackson, number 1, Patrick Mahomes, number 2, Josh Allen, number 3, and Joe Burrow, number 4. That's the top. Now I think it's important to zoom out a little bit and let's start building our way from the bottom. And let's get on with the you suck tier of the quarterback tier ranking, because you can see on your screen on YouTube, there's a lot of guys we have to tier rank, plenty of starters, plenty of backups, some guys that definitely can go up and down the tier ranker depending on your POV, how you feel about certain guys, and what you believe each player can do. That said, I think there is only one quarterback in the NFL that belongs in the you suck tier in this here tier ranking. And no, it isn't Aaron Rodgers. I know the ayahuasca may have fried his brain. It's not him. It is not guys that you think, have played a lot and have been terrible. To me, the one quarterback that belongs in the you suck tier is no longer with the Cleveland Browns, but it is Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett, of the 50 quarterbacks we're ranking today, is by far the worst. He was terrible in Cleveland. He was bad in Philadelphia in like the 1.5 games he played out there. I don't know how the Browns got to trade him away. He was bad in Pittsburgh. He just has never really found his footing in the NFL. His hands are too small. The turnovers are abundant. Kenny Pickett, to me, doesn't have high potential, has a really low floor, and really should not even be a backup quarterback in the NFL. Sure, he's a great guy, but when your lone highlight is a collegiate highlight and where you fake slid, which is illegal, that isn't a great sign for your NFL status. But to me, Kenny Pickett is the worst quarterback and belongs as the sole contender, sole candidate of the you suck tier, which of course is a reference to the heckler in Happy Gilmore. But let's move our way up the tier ranker into the next one, that being backup and nothing more. This is a tier which is pretty straightforward. Guys that you don't want to start for you, guys that are going to be quarterback 2s and 3s across the NFL, and players that, if they are starting for you on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, you're probably not too confident they're going to get the job done for you during the season. Maybe they pull one game out of their hat, but really, you'd be shocked if they make your team competitive, or it takes a really great defense and other offensive players to lift them up to victory. Guys you probably don't want out there. And if they are, you're like, oh, well, chalk that one up as an L this Sunday. And the first guy that goes in our backup and nothing more tier is Mitchell Trubisky, backup quarterback to Josh Allen out there in Buffalo, former first-round pick. If you're a San Francisco 49er fan, you are very, very thankful that Mitchell Trubisky went to the Bears, albeit got you Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. But that trade netted you Fred Warner, so there was some good with the trade down with the Chicago Bears. What a pitiful pick. There was some bright spots in Chicago, but has since bounced around in the NFL and found a sweet spot to back up Josh Allen. Rarely ever going to have to play, collects a paycheck. There may be some mobility in Trubisky, but if he's playing out there, the vision isn't great. The decision-making is not great, so would not want Trubisky really on my roster unless he is going to be nothing more than a backup quarterback, which is why he's in the backup and nothing more tier, backing up, again, one of the guys you prefer him backing up in Josh Allen. The next guy in the tier list might be a little better than Trubisky simply because he's been more successful in a more recent history. That is Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Aiden O'Connell. I like AOC. I think he's a good dude. He's someone that I think he's competent, he's confident, has a big arm, a player that I think a team could rally around, and with a good running game, may be able to keep your season afloat by 1 or 2 games. But if he's playing 6, 8 weeks, your season is likely doomed. I do like AOC. I think he's fine, but there is no way I can put him in the backup with starting potential tier because simply he's not that kind of quarterback. So I have Aiden O'Connell as my backup and nothing more tier quarterback number 2. Then behind them is Andy Dalton, a guy I am very pleasantly surprised is still in the NFL, a player that I loved in Cincinnati, loved at TCU, bounced around with the Bears and the Cowboys, and now he's backing up Bryce Young in Carolina. Love the Red Rocket. However, he's in a good spot to be that veteran, kind of over-your-shoulder mentor to Bryce Young. You saw him do that last year with the former number 1 overall pick in Carolina. I like where he's at. Again, kind of like AOC, if he starts a game or 2, you can see Dalton still has something to give and offer on the NFL field, but you would not be happy knowing he's inching closer to 36, 37. You wouldn't want Andy Dalton as your starting quarterback going into the year, but backing up a young guy, that is a near perfect spot for Dalton. He's kind of the inverse of Trubisky. You want Trubisky backing up a franchise elite quarterback, where you want Dalton backing up a young guy, teaching the ropes and see how we can do. So Andy Dalton is the 3rd quarterback in the backup and nothing more tier. I'm going to go to the YouTube chat for 1 second because I want to say what's up to Big Brick 84 on YouTube. Tommy Huxley giving the old fairy salute. How you doing, brother? And Khalil Young saying, Sterling, what's good? Right back at you. Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday after Labor Day. Doing something different on the show, not just Niner centered, but Badger in YouTube says, Purdy is better than all those fools you put in the tier number 1, which was Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. I'll push back a little bit, but you'll have to see where Brock Purdy lands when it's all said and done, Badger. So stick around, and we'll get to San Francisco's quarterback relatively soon. So stick around. Big Brick says, just rewound to the beginning to get the gist of this. Like the exercise. I'll tell you this now. We do this every single year. We tier rank every quarterback, 50 of them. So hopefully you guys like where things end up when it's all said and done. But getting back to the backup and nothing more tier quickly here, let's put in Drew Lock. I like Drew Lock a lot. Beat Philadelphia a couple of years ago in 2022, helped San Francisco net themselves a higher playoff positioning because of it. Big fan of his. Big arm. He is the epitome of a backup quarterback you wouldn't really want starting for you, albeit has a big arm, but he has some swag. He feels himself, and I don't mind that guy being in the room. Behind him, I have I have the locks, the beard. I have Gardner Minshew, who backs up now Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. I love Gardner Minshew, but again, maybe he's closer towards Aiden O'Connell and Andy Dalton, the guy you really wouldn't mind stepping in. I think Kansas City views him as their version of Chad Henne, where if all things go awry and Mahomes goes down, Minshew has won plenty of games in his past and his history and his career. Maybe if Mahomes misses one game, he can survive and can keep them alive in a playoff game or playoff hunt. So I like Minshew, but he is no longer, like at one point in time, he was in the backup with starting potential tier, but no longer is he in that. Then behind him, I have Jacoby Brissett, and I have Jameis Winston. I like Brissett. I think he was given an unfair shake in New England and Indianapolis, but as time goes on, you have to move on. However, I do think that now behind Kyler Murray, who does find himself often injured, I think it's a good spot for him. He'll get some playing time in for a team like, um, the Arizona Cardinals, who probably want to make a push for a wild card this year. Brissett isn't the worst guy to have in that room. He's, again, a competent guy. He'll know the offense. He's a veteran player, been around the league once, twice, three times more often. So I like Brissett, but again, in that backup and nothing more tier for sure. Then Jameis Winston. I almost put Winston in the any given Sunday tier because one Sunday he's munching on W's. The next Sunday he's throwing 7 interceptions, and you're like, what just happened? What just happened? So Winston, to me, belongs in the backup quarterback tier. I think he's a guy, if you're losing a game by a lot of points, say it's 28-3, you got to get 25. Winston's a guy where it's a blowout, it's late. You don't mind giving him a chance, air the football out. He's got a big arm. He'll make mistakes, but he'll take a chance. Maybe he'll spark something and in a weird, awkward way, find his way, maybe rallying a team, but he's a good guy in the locker room, good guy you want to help young quarterbacks and even veteran quarterbacks as well. Keep them fresh, keep them honest, and hopefully keep them happy behind him. Never going to push for a job, never going to cause some problems, but on a bad team like the Giants might be this year, at least with the regime certainly having some questions around it, having Winston there to keep things light behind Wilson and Jackson Dart is never a bad thing. Let's then move up to the backup tier. Hope I'm not forgetting anybody. I don't think I am. Actually I am. Spencer Rattler belongs in the backup and nothing more tier. If I could put a tier in between backup and nothing more and you suck, it would be Spencer Rattler. He isn't good, but is the Saints starter this year. I think there's a little bit more to him than meets the eye. He was really good at Oklahoma, then fell off a cliff in his second year there as a starter. Caleb Williams became the starter. Then he transferred away to South Carolina. Then he went to the NFL. Just having an awkward couple of years as a quarterback. Now at the Saints, Kellen Moore's in the building. I think you should see an improved play from New Orleans offense. But as of now, after what he showed last year, Spencer Rattler belongs kind of teetering towards you suck and you're a backup and nothing more. But let's go up to the next tier on our list, that being backups with starting potential, because this is where I think things get a little dicey. And this tier will also be reserved for quarterbacks that maybe weren't the highest draft pick, but do have potential out of this year's draft class, as you'll see in this next tier. In this next tier, I have, if I can see on my notes in front of me, I have the Indianapolis Colts backup, that is backup quarterback, Anthony Richardson, a guy that I loved coming out of college. He has a big arm. He's a big body dude. He can move around, but the injuries have derailed him. There's been some questions about toughness. Can he really command a huddle and gain respect? It does feel like that AR-15, which is his nickname, that is kind of on his last legs in Indianapolis with the Colts. They are not starting him. He had a pretty good preseason, but going into year 3 for him, it does seem like with Daniel Jones starting, Shane Steichen's trying to save his job, get him one more year, and it feels like Anthony Richardson will no longer be the Colts quarterback. Not going to trade him, which is weird, but I do like Richardson. However, he's in a good spot to eventually play again this year, but I just don't think it'll be in Indianapolis. I would love to see him if there was this awkward, weird world where Baker Mayfield wasn't in Tampa Bay. I would love to see Richardson in Tampa Bay. Wouldn't mind seeing him in Minnesota. That spot I think could actually fit for him, with McCarthy being a big question mark. But right now, Richardson is the backup with potential to be a starter in this tier list. The next quarterback is Jackson Dart, the Giants quarterback they drafted this year. I like Jackson Dart. He's behind Russell Wilson. I think he's different than a quarterback that has a good foundation. Those guys are reserved for first round draft picks, guys that have new regimes in the building, guys you trust the offensive play calling. Maybe you like the weapons around him, albeit you love Malik Neighbors and you like Tyrone Tracy. I just don't know how long Brian Daboll will last in the Big Apple. So I do like Jackson Dart. There's probably a chance he does start this season for the Giants. But as of right now, without seeing much of him coming into the NFL out of the preseason, I have him as a backup with starting potential, which could be as soon as this season for the New York Giants. The next quarterback on my list is Shedeur Sanders. Now, Sanders may be the most polarizing quarterback in the entire league, which is funny because he ain't done much. Shedeur has not done much whatsoever. He's more known for his last name than his actual play, which isn't fair to him. I think Shedeur was never going to be a first-round draft pick. I did not see him falling, all the way to the 5th round. That was crazy on draft night. I wasn't going to go full Mel Kiper. That was a little nuts, but I do think Shedeur will start at some point, or at least has a chance to start at some point this year for the Browns. Do they love Joe Flacco? Probably not. They're probably going to start Dillon Gabriel at some point before Shedeur, but I think Shedeur has a lot to offer on the field. Is he going to be great? I don't think so. I think Shedeur's ceiling really kind of is in that just good tier. He's never going to be elite, never going to be great. I'm not a player I'd bank my money on being this phenomenal player in the NFL, but I do think Shedeur Sanders is a backup quarterback that does possess starting potential in the right situation, which for him, albeit is the Browns, may be a good spot for him to get some starting reps in his rookie season out there in Cleveland. And behind Shedeur Sanders is his teammate Dillon Gabriel. Now, I like Dillon Gabriel a lot. He was one of my most underrated prospects coming out of this year's draft class, and I am really surprised that fans have kind of had a negative mindset towards him. I think he can play on time. I was hoping he'd go to Miami in a Shanahan-like system, albeit Stefanski's kind of like that, but isn't too similar. I think he would work wonders behind Tua, but the Browns took him in the 3rd round. I think Gabriel has a lot to offer. He's mobile. He's quick. Not going to be like Lamar Jackson mobile, but can give you something with his legs, but he'll play on time. He's accurate, and he'll do what Stefanski says. And if you trust your head coach and your offensive play calling, I think that can get you a long way in the NFL. Kirk Cousins is like that, and others along those lines. So I think Gabriel probably doesn't have the ceiling like Sanders does, but I think his floor is higher than Sanders. So they kind of are neck and neck in my backup with starting potential tier coming into the season. And behind Dillon Gabriel is the first 49ers quarterback off the board. That is Mac McCorkle Jones. Mac Jones, to me, is the next reclamation project for Kyle Shanahan. He's on the Sam Darnold trek of hoping to get a new job in 1 or 2 years after backing up Brock Purdy. Mac Jones, if you've been paying attention, had a pretty good training camp. Some would say better than Brock Purdy, which to me is crazy, but there are those out there. That said, Mac Jones, to me, does have still starting potential. I get that 2021 class wasn't great. I'd probably put Trey Lance in here too because he's still so young. I don't have his picture here, but I think Mac Jones, he does fit that mold, similar to a Kirk Cousins, that Kyle Shanahan scheme. Do what I tell you, and you'll have success. Don't think too much. Simplify everything for you. And I think Mac Jones, despite being right now a failed first-round draft pick of the Patriots, I do think there is still a little bit of space where you can find a route, a path where he becomes maybe the next Sam Darnold-esque project from Kyle Shanahan. So I have him here at the bottom of the tier list, mind you. So I it's not like I'm like banking on it, but I do think McCorkle, Mac Jones does have still some starting potential in the NFL. I also have Tyler Shugg here of the New Orleans Saints. I just don't love the Saints quarterback room. No surprise there. Not very good. Not a group I would, get behind. I wouldn't draft any of those dudes in fantasy. He's like 26 years old. He'll start at some point this year, but when discussing the future, discussing where his ceiling could be, I know there was talks of the arm talent and the ball placement. You have to play to actually show that, and I don't think that Shug on a bad team with a better offensive play caller, mind you, will actually be able to do that this year. I don't think he'll be able to sit back in the pocket and, put guys in the right place with his ball placement. So I like Tyler Shug, but if anything, he's at the bottom end of the backup with starting potential. Niner Media says, hello, what's up? Also says, might as well add Zach Wilson to the you suck category. And reading my notes on my phone, I think you're right. I forgot to add Zach Wilson to the you suck quarterback tier. So let's do that now. Kenny Pickett, you're no longer alone. I tricked myself and psyched myself that Zach Wilson is a little better than I think we give him well, maybe not, but I do think Zach Wilson's better than Kenny Pickett by a wide margin. I'm not sure why he's gotten less opportunities than Kenny Pickett. I think if you put Zach Wilson in the right place, maybe Miami's a good spot for him. He was pretty good in Denver last year. He was, a highlight of the coaching staff talking about him, hyping him up. So maybe that's just coach speak, but a pleasant surprise from Zach Wilson. But yes, he's closer to you suck than he is a backup and nothing more. Maybe he can change that this year. And honestly, with Tua Tagovailoa's concussion problem, it's one hit and Zach Wilson's in there. So would not be shocked to see him play and hopefully rise up this tier list this season. Let's get to the next tier because placeholders, the guys that you don't mind starting for you, only if you can see the future option ahead of them. Now, maybe that's a rookie or a future first-round draft pick for you. Maybe you're a rebuilding team and you say, you know what? This year isn't the year to play this guy. They're a project. Let's start XYZ ahead of them and see how things work themselves out. These guys could also be playing for injured quarterbacks, and they're there to keep the team afloat in the meantime until the XYZ quarterback can come back from injury. With that said, the best quarterback in my placeholder tier is Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson. Let him cook. Brian Daboll, let Russell Wilson cook out there in the Big Apple. He's married to Sierra. He's out there in New York. It's the bright lights, the fur coats. Let Russell Wilson cook in New York this year. I think he's a placeholder for Jackson Dart. I don't know if Dart will be there when Brian Daboll is there next year. We will obviously see how this year progresses, but Russell Wilson is at this point in his career the epitome of, hey, that guy isn't bad. He's not great. He'll win us some games, maybe even beat a good team here or there, might push for a wild card, but really isn't the future we're hoping will be the quarterback position for us. So Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the placeholder tier. Behind him, the quarterback that is now backing up Michael Penix in Atlanta, Kirk Ice Cousins. Kirko Ice out there in ATL. I feel bad for Kirk Cousins. However, the Achilles injury, his age, the writing was on the wall. He got burned by Minnesota. He got burned by Atlanta. Shocked nobody wanted to acquire him. Shocked Atlanta didn't work a trade or rework his contract and make him more affordable. I would love to see him in Cleveland or back in Minnesota. That would be great for them because McCarthy has been a roller coaster out there in Minneapolis. But Kirk Cousins to me is maybe not on equal footing to Russell Wilson, but I do think could be a competitive quarterback to have in that room that can keep your roster afloat like Wilson, but maybe not an 8-win team, a 9-win team. If they have a great running game and a great defense, Cousins will probably lose you some more games than Wilson would, but he is the next quarterback in the placeholder tier. And Badger says here in the YouTube chat, Kirk Cousins is laughing his way all the way to the bank. What is it, like Chief Keef? Like, ha ha ha. Like, ha ha ha. Yes, Kirk Cousins is getting paid to do nothing behind Michael Penix. So, yeah, Kirk, good for you and your family. Get paid, brother. Behind Kirk Cousins is the ageless wonder, Joe Flacco. He took the Browns to the playoffs a couple years ago. He was keeping the Colts afloat last year, now back in Cleveland. I love Joe Flacco. Would have loved to have him back up Brock Purdy, but to get Mac Jones in there, you don't hate that either. But he is the epic placeholder. He's 40 years old. He's not going to be there probably next year, but he can put the ball where it needs to be, do what the offense says it needs to get done. But again, not the future. He is in the past. But love Joe Flacco. Happy for him. Happy he's going to start the year as the starting quarterback in Cleveland. But the clock is ticking on him, thus in the placeholder tier. Behind him is the former 49ers quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. We thought Jimmy Garoppolo may start the year for the Rams, knowing Matthew Stafford's back was acting up. He wasn't practicing for a while. But I think Jimmy Garoppolo, at this point in time, not great. You don't love if he's your starter, but you don't mind it, I guess. Jimmy is probably closer to backup with starting potential than a placeholder at this point in time. But I like Jimmy. He's a good dude. If you have a good running game and a competent defense, he'll keep you in those games. He'll have one bad throw a game. Jimmy Ono throws. We know that in San Francisco. But I think Jimmy gets some more hate than he deserves. The Raiders' awkward tenure really stained him for a lot of people, including myself. But Jimmy's fine back in a McVay, Shanahan-like scheme. The ceiling is much higher than it was with Josh McDaniel out there in Las Vegas. So Jimmy is on or in the placeholder tier behind Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, and Joe Flacco. And behind Jimmy are two more guys, Daniel Jones and Marcus Mariota. Mariota, again, is closer to backup and nothing more. In fact, I'll probably move him down there right now. Mariota's fine. He's a backup. He's a little mobile, can run some read options. Not the most accurate guy, but he's been around. He quit on his team a couple years ago in Atlanta, but he came back now, and he's here again. However, Daniel Jones is starting with the Colts. Sound the alarms. Daniel Jones is once again starting NFL football games. I can't believe it. I don't know why this is happening, but it's happening. Daniel Jones right now, I think, is potentially in the perfect offense for him to succeed. Now, you can debate, is it smart to not play Richardson? I would disagree and say he should play all the reps he possibly can, but Steichen and that regime are trying to save their lives. You play Daniel Jones, hope he gets you 8 to 9 wins into the wild card, then you adjust after the season. I love Steichen's offense for him. I think you will see a little bit of the Jalen Hurts stuff in the offense. Jones can run the read option pretty well. Had his best year running it with the Giants. He's a mobile guy. Sometimes the decision-making is really, really, really poor. But he is in the future. He's a bottom-tier placeholder with a little bit of higher potential than, say, Jimmy Garoppolo, Joe Flacco, and Kirk Cousins. But for Daniel Jones right now, Vanilla Vic, 1 year with Steichen may do him some wonders, may earn him a higher tiered backup job, let's say like Trubisky or Sam Darnold a couple years ago. So that can be an option for him, but Daniel Jones belongs firmly in the placeholder tier, and Marcus Mariota is now fallen down to backup and nothing more. And that brings us to the retirement home tier, reserved for one patient and one patient only. You know who he is. He does darkness retreats in ayahuasca by himself. It is Aaron Rodgers, A-Rod. I really have come to enjoy the Aaron Rodgers chaos, fiasco, media, whatever it may be. I think Rodgers gets unnecessary hate for his play on the field, And I've come to enjoy the stupidity off the field of like, you know what, man, you're nearing 40, you're in your 40s, you clearly are just trying to hang on to your prime. You have so many things going on off the field that negatively impact you that I get why you're doing ayahuasca and darkness retreats, but it's inching closer to time now to clarify. Retirement home doesn't mean you're bad. Retirement home just simply means you may need some more help than you had in previous years. Aaron Rodgers is no longer the Green Bay Packers version of A-Rod. He's a guy that likely needs to have a really good defense and a really great running game and some receivers. He can't just have Devontae Adams and go out there and play 1v1 the entire game. I think Rodgers being in the retirement home tier is simply me saying it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be carried sometimes up the stairs to bed. It's okay to say, hey, I can't do this by myself. Not that he's a bad quarterback. I just think that right now, the arm talent is still there, but the durability is down. The irritability is way up. He's yelling at dudes. He's hating his head coaches. I just think at this point in time, getting into Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin, a hard-nosed dude that loves his defense, wants throwing the football, I think retirement home is a good place for Aaron Rodgers, but he is the lone, unlike Kenny Pickett, who we thought was in the you suck tier by himself, Aaron Rodgers is the lone attendant of the retirement home in this tier. And that brings us to the strong foundation with potential tier on the tier list. And to start things off, we're going to go with the former first-round draft pick of the Carolina Panthers. That is Bryce Young. Was anybody overjoyed with what they saw last year from Bryce Young? At the end of the year, he got benched. In the middle of the year, we all said, what's happening in Carolina? New head coach, GM's off his rocker, the owner's crazy. What's going on? It worked out. There was something clicked when he got benched, something clicked. The offense got simplified for him. Dave Canales, and good for him being a head coach. And right now, maybe one of the most underrated quarterback gurus in football. He fixed Baker Mayfield, and he may have fixed Bryce Young. The potential has always been there. That's why I refrain from putting him in good, great, elite. Obviously, he's not there yet. You want to see it more consistently this year, but I do think Bryce Young is starting to break out of his shell. He's evolving into the next version of himself, and I have a lot of high potential for him. The ball placement, the accuracy, the feel for the game, the off-schedule stuff. Bryce Young took massive leaps last year. I'm pumping the brakes a little bit, but I do think he belongs at the top of the strong foundation. He built a foundation last year. They got him more receivers this year out there in Carolina, improved the defense for him. If Bryce Young can build upon the foundation of last year, good things are happening out there in Carolina. The second quarterback in the strong foundation with potential tier to me is the other young quarterback that got some playing time late last year and nearly made the playoffs. That is Michael Penix out there in ATL now, the starting quarterback for Raheem Morris's group with the Falcons. I was shocked when the Falcons drafted him in the first round last year. You had Cousins off the Achilles injury. I thought, get a mid-round quarterback, a younger guy that may have to play. You don't love him, but let's see what he's got. However, they said, screw that. We're getting Penix, and they look really smart in doing so, knowing this last year's quarterback class wasn't that great. So good on Raheem Morris and that group out there in Atlanta. I really liked what I saw from Penix last year. Now, there are some questions as to can they protect him, but you have Bijan Robinson, you have Drake London. Maybe you get something from Kyle Pitts this year. You never know. But you have Darnell Mooney and you have some players out there for you offensively to help your young quarterback continue his growth in year two. I think Atlanta will be vying for a playoff spot again this year in the NFC South with the Panthers, with the Buccaneers. And I think Penix It depends on which quarterback plays best out there. But I think Penix and Bryce Young are going to be vying for the next, up and coming, young quarterback in the division. And Penix certainly has a spot or has a claim to the number one spot in this tier. But I think Bryce Young has a higher potential. But Penix may have the better foundation, if that makes sense. But love Penix, like what I saw last year. Want to see more, but I think he'd be in the, probably a good spot for him in this tier list, right behind Bryce Young. Behind Bryce Young and Penix is the number 2 overall pick, I believe, in last year's draft, that being Drake May of the New England Patriots. Again, new regime, new head coach. They try to bring in Stephon Diggs. They cut Kendrick Bourne. They're trying to build around their young quarterback. But even then, even how bad last year was for Drake May in New England, I was really shocked at what he did. Plenty of games they should have won that were not his fault. They lost. I love the arm talent. I called him my number 2 quarterback coming out of last year's draft. I had him ahead of Jayden Daniels, which right now looks foolish, but we'll see when it's all said and done. But the talent of those 2 guys is off the charts. Obviously, Daniels maybe brought into a better situation, a more stable one. You see now with the regime change out there already in New England. But love Drake May. Love what I saw. I'm hoping Stephon Diggs is healthy and has his head on right. I love Kyle Williams out there for him. So hoping they have the stability at the head coaching job with Vrabel. They can play some smash mouth defense. They made it the point to get some weapons, improve that defense, and hopefully give May something to work with. I wouldn't expect a playoff run or even an appearance, but I think 6 wins, 7 wins, something to show for it, I think is in the book for them out there in New England. But again, it seems like he had his own foundation, but now New England's trying to actually build him a foundation with the head coach and the team around him. So there's some growth to be had there on the team's end and his end, but I like Drake May a lot. There's a foundation growing underneath him. Hoping after this year, all 3 of those guys, Penix, May, and Young, can graduate from foundational potential to the good tier or the great tier. But those 3 guys, to me, like last year's quarterback class, the talent was off the charts. Like this year's class was like, oh my God, they're terrible. Last year's class, like if Williams can unlock what's going on out there in Chicago with Ben Johnson, those top 3 picks can be awesome, and Penix looked good too. So a big fan of what's happening out there with Penix and Drake May. And speaking of Caleb Williams, I have Caleb behind Bryce Young, behind Michael Penix, and even behind Drake May in my strong foundation with potential tier. Now, Caleb Williams may have the best foundation around him. I think last year, the head coaching stuff and Eberflus and Badgett playing, a lot of question marks at the head coaching and offensive play calling positions. However, you bring in Ben Johnson, you have DJ Moore, you have Rome Odunze, you get Colson Loveland. The Bears signed 3 offensive linemen to help protect him. There is maybe a path, a future where he takes the biggest leap in year 2. However, I said it last year in the tier list, said it during the scouting combine stuff, and in all the scouting reports. Caleb can become a phenomenal quarterback. The arm talent, the off-schedule stuff, the mobility. I think Caleb lacks the feel of the game sometimes. The pocket presence isn't always there. He doesn't always like to play in the offense. He wants to play hero ball. It got him in trouble at USC. It got him in trouble at Oklahoma. It got him in trouble last year. Now, the team wasn't great last year, but Caleb, to me, is inching closer to boom or bust. But what the Bears did, bringing in all the guys they did, fixing the head coaching stuff, getting an offensive play caller in there, like Ben Johnson, who was phenomenal. I think that Caleb Williams, to me, has the best foundation, but it's up to him, unlike Penix, unlike Bryce Young, unlike Drake May, where I think those guys have the mental fortitude and have a feel for the game now. Where Williams just doesn't have it yet. It may happen this year. I am all for changing things as we do a re-ranking in the middle of the year or so. But right now, I just think Caleb belongs a little bit below May, Penix, and Bryce Young in my tier list. Kenny 49ers says, Bears will forever be terrible. Caleb is a terrible quarterback. It wouldn't go that far, but I see what you're saying. The Bears are seemingly cursed in Chicago. And Fish and Chips, what's up, brother? He says, is Sterling Bennett in this quarterback tier list? I wish, but no. Unfortunately not. I'm not in this tier list, but if I was, I'd be on the elite tier. That's what I put myself, or I'd be on the you suck tier, depending on how you view the show. Hopefully you like it. By the way, like, share, and subscribe. Use promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. If you are wanting to go to Niners and Seahawks this Sunday, 1 o'clock in Seattle, Washington, buy your tickets at SeatGeek and use that promo code 49ersaccess and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. It's a discount. I still use coupons. I still use gift cards I got from Christmas 30 years ago. I'm not even 30 years old, but I'm using them because it's free money. And right now, you got to get some free money. But if you want to go ahead and use that promo code 49ers Access and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay, back to the strong foundation with potential tier. And let's toss in here two guys really quickly. I have J.J. McCarthy from the Vikings and this past year's first overall pick, Cam Ward. I think McCarthy has the best passing game play caller as his head coach, that being Kevin O'Connell. If McCarthy, who has not been great during the preseason, didn't play all last year because of an injury. He's on thin ice out there in Minnesota. It's looking like a big mistake right now for the Vikings. Thank God they had Sam Darnold last year to save them. But McCarthy does have a strong foundation. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, Jay Jettas, a eventually non-suspended Jordan Addison. Brian Flores is still there. That is a perfect place for a rookie quarterback to come in and make mistakes, get some learning, get some teaching, and hopefully grow. So, like where McCarthy's at, just have a lot of questions about his future out there in Minnesota. Not expecting too many skull chants this year from the fans. Then Cam Ward. The Titans are rebuilding. They're just tearing everything down, trying to build it back up from scratch. They've moved so many guys around, but they're trying to build around Cam Ward. Love the pick initially out of Miami. Big arm, has elite potential, but right now, not seeing him play in the regular season. I like what they're building for him. However, without seeing it, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but also don't want to overrate him. So at the end of the strong foundational potential tier, you can certainly maybe put him over McCarthy, but I think having O'Connell and Jettas and Addison certainly help McCarthy over a player like Cam Ward. And Fish and Chip says here in the YouTube chat, McCarthy is a raw piece of meat yet to leave the ranch. Well, sometimes the slaughterhouse is the scariest place for a young player. So getting hit, taking some hits, making mistakes isn't always the worst thing. Sometimes you come out tastier, a little fatter, and looking a little better when it's all said and done for some consumption. So maybe taking his licks in his rookie season isn't the worst thing for McCarthy. So we shall see how things go. That brings us to the Any Given Sunday tier. And this is quarterbacks that sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes you're like, wow, they're elite. Other times you're like, wow, why are you playing at all? That's our quarterback? What the heck? Or they have like a very clear weakness where you're like, if that opposing defense can exploit that, it's game over. And this quarterback clearly should not be the starter of our team. And to begin this tier, the top of the tier, the best quarterback in this tier to me is Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray. And I, for one, really like Kyler Murray a lot. Mobility, I think he's always given San Francisco some fits. I think Kyler Kyler can be elite. Kyler has the potential to be elite, but he's often hurt. The size is a problem. The head, the mental game is too much for him sometimes. He starts off really hot to begin the year, beats some good teams and falters late. And you're like, how did you have a 5-game lead in the wild card and you lose the last 10 games? What just happened? I like Kyler, but he's really inconsistent at times. He's someone that, there was the Call of Duty stuff, but again, the on-field potential is still there for him. However, I don't think Kyler he cannot be considered the franchise quarterback out there in Arizona. I like what they're building. I just don't really know if Kyler is the answer for them at quarterback, because you would think this year's a big leap. It's the third year of Jonathan Gannon, the third year for his defensive mindset. They've got Walter Nolan, who's hurt for the first 4 weeks this year, but Bill Johnson, they were a better team last year. They're going to give San Francisco fits. They're going to give better team fits this year, but I just don't know if Kyler is the answer anymore. I would not be shocked if after maybe a down season again by the Cardinals, if Kyler isn't somebody up for grabs via the trade market. I don't know what his contract looks like, but from a simple play standpoint, the clock should be ticking on Kyler's tenure in the desert. The next quarterback in this tier list is Sam Darnold. Now, Darnold may be a quarterback that to some belongs in a more tier like good or good with great potential. That may be overzealous, but I like Sam Darnold. I think he plays the game right, has a heck of an arm. He's mobile, very underrated in his mobility, has a big arm. When he's right, he's right. I think the problem is if you get interior pressure on Sam Darnold, the game's over. He gets fidgety. He freaks out. We saw it last year. We've seen it his entire career, although there were improvements last year. He diced up a lot of good defenses last year. He was a big reason Minnesota went to the playoffs last year, but also a big reason for the Vikings faltering late in the season against the Lions and the playoffs. So I like Sam Darnold. I think maybe there's a chance he grows even more in Seattle with the Kubiak calling plays. But despite the efforts of the Seahawks to improve the offensive line on the interior, I do think that Darnold still has that one glaring weakness where you're like, were you a one-year wonder? I don't think he was, but also if somebody gets home on the interior, anything can happen, hence the any giving Sunday tier for Sam Darnold. Then behind Sam Darnold, I have Justin Fields, because despite the Jets retooling themselves, getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, bringing in Steve Wilkes and Aaron Glenn as the head coach in DC out there in the Big Apple as well, I guess kind of New Jersey, New York, whatever, it's MetLife, you know what I mean? Fields doesn't have the arm talent to me. However, if you get Fields on the right time, the right game, the right place, he'll rush for 135 yards against you and 3 touchdowns. And it's like, oh, okay. He was playing pretty good with the Steelers last year. Again, he's a quarterback that needs a good running game and a good defense. He's a fine kind of 2-year stopgap for that regime out there. I like Fields enough. Again, if you're a young team, if you're a regime that really isn't trying to tear the foundation down, but you do want to give yourself some time to implement your way of thinking, I think Fields, again, he's going to throw for 120 yards or 180 yards and 2 interceptions, but on every third week, he'll rush for 135 yards and give you 3 touchdowns. So there is a roller coaster ride with Fields. Not a great quarterback by any means, but I do think belongs in a group that, and there's a reason why it's called Any Given Sunday, because I can easily see Bryce Young, Michael Penix, Drake May, Caleb Williams, McCarthy, Russell Wilson, Cam Ward, Joe Flacco, all having better years than Justin Fields. But again, any given Sunday, he'll go off for you and score you some points. So it just depends on the week. Again, hence why any given Sunday. So is he a great thrower? No, but he's a heck of a runner. And right now, the Jets are probably going to do some top tier running of the football this year. So I do think that Fields belongs in this tier. I get there's some pushback in the comments, but I do think when it's all said and done, like, he ain't there for long. There is certainly a conversation to be had. I think it was Big Brick 84 said, put him in placeholder. That's certainly an option, but right now I have Fields in Any Given Sunday on the tier list. The next quarterback and the final quarterback on the Any Given Sunday tier is Miami Dolphins starter Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I really got close to putting Tua in the retirement home tier, but he came back last year, was healthy, looked better when he got healthy. However, Any Given Sunday, Tua can throw for 400 yards and the offense looks great, but when the winter months come, he falters. One Sunday, he's balling. The next one, he's getting hit, knocked over, and the season's over. I like Tua the person. I want Tua to stay upright and stay healthy. Wear the Guardian cap, please. But right now, there's just too many variables into his game, his health, his play style, that to me, like, you can't put him on good. He's closer to placeholder right now than he is. But I do think Tua can give you something. He's a fine quarterback. Maybe that makes him a good quarterback. He isn't the long-term answer by any means. He isn't a quarterback I view as the franchise. He's a guy I think of like, in a couple years when he's 31, you say goodbye, you call it a career and say, hey, see you later. But I think that is a good spot for Tua because there are going to be some games where Tua balls out and has the Dolphins playing pretty well, especially if Tyreek's healthy and they have the vertical passing game going. Tua can still get that done, but I do think that Tua belongs at the bottom end of the Any Given Sunday tier. Good processor, good thrower, not mobile, and has a lot of injury history, but I think at the bottom of Any Given Sunday is a good spot for Tua Tagovailoa. We have 3 tiers left from the bottom to the top. Good with great potential, and great. Where will Brock Purdy go? Let's look at the good quarterbacks, and let's grab Dallas Cowboys quarterback, the $60 million man, Dak Prescott. I know. You guys don't like Dak Prescott. I know. He's highly overpaid. I do like Dak, though. I think Dak's a good leader. He's a good dude. There have been previous years in which, when he's healthy, the offense can move. But there's a reason why he's not higher on this list. The playoff losses, the big game losses, the clutch game losses. Dak, to me, is never going to reach that level of play. He's a good quarterback. He can stabilize your franchise. You don't mind Dak being your starter, but the expectation should never be Super Bowl with Dak Prescott as your leader on offense. He's fine. I like Dak. He plays in the offense. He can make you some plays, but he'll falter when the stage gets bright and the lights start to shine. So Dak's a good quarterback. Don't love him. Don't hate him. He's fine. He's above mediocre, but he's just right there, middle tier quarterback, hence why that's a good quarterback in the NFL. He's much better than Kyler and Darnold and Fields and Tua. He's better right now than Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, and Flacco and Garoppolo and Rodgers. And I think at this point in time, it's going to be hard for guys like Young, Penix, May, and Williams to jump him on the list. But I think Dak's a fine quarterback. The injuries do make us forget how good he can be, but it's always never good enough to win the big game. The next quarterback on the good tier is Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Now, the only reason why I put Trevor in this tier is simply because I believe this year, especially with Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator, as the head coach, we saw what happened with him in Tampa Bay. I'm expecting a little bit of growth from Lawrence this year. Not a great quarterback. There have been some signs of greatness in him when he went to the playoffs. He had the Chiefs on the rocks for a little bit of time in that game, but now he has Brian Thomas. He has Travis Hunter. There is signs that, okay, they're trying to emulate what they had in Tampa Bay. Now, will that translate? I don't know. It's a projection. It's a ranking. I'm trying to predict what these things will be and basing things off last year, knowing that they have a new play caller, they have a new OC, they have new offensive weapons there for him. I can see Trevor Lawrence having a better year. They're very similar, highly paid, overpaid quarterbacks that have never won anything, Dak and Trevor. I think it's really hard to put them in a tier below good. Again, they're fine. They're not great. They're not terrible, but they're just kind of there. They're leaders. They're good with the media. They're good in the locker room. They're fine. The next quarterback in this group is going to be Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Geno Smith, and I'm going to put Geno ahead of Trevor Lawrence in this list. Again, these are all the same guys, although I do think Geno is more adequately paid compared to Dak and Trevor Lawrence. Geno, again, a great dude, great story, good leader, will know the offense, won't lose you many games. You expect to make the playoffs with Geno Smith. I think that with the Raiders now, you have Ashton Genty, you're trying to build the defense, and Pete Carroll's there. Like, you can see how in a year things start to come together in Las Vegas for Geno and the Raiders. And I think with what he did the last 2 to 3 years in Seattle, again, he wasn't great, but Geno was never bad. He was never going to win you big games, but he wasn't going to lose you bad games either. I like Geno. He is a smooth sailing type of quarterback. When he's out there, you trust him. You're not going to expect 35 touchdowns. You're not going to expect, 20 interceptions. It's Geno Smith. He's a fine quarterback in 2025, a stabilizer, if you will, like Dak and Trevor Lawrence. Big Brick 84 says, can we change it from good to mid with upsides? If you want to call it that personally, you can, but I wanted to make it more simple for everybody watching. So good is the tier we'll stick with, but Fish and Chips says, how about the desperate good tier list? Yeah, like if you're a team banking on Geno taking you far, it might be a little desperate, but again, a stabilizing force nonetheless out there in Las Vegas. And that brings us to the final 2 tier lists. Where will Brock Purdy go? Great or good with great potential? Here we go, folks. Here we go. Let's kick things off with the good with great potential tier. Let's start at the bottom of the tier list, and we're going to go ahead and grab Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love. Going to go ahead and grab Jordan Love on this list. I really do like Jordan Love. He makes some bonehead mistakes that cost Green Bay last year. In fact, last year's season for Green Bay was really saved by Malik Willis. But Jordan Love is a late season player. As soon as Toyotathon happens, he gets going. I think the potential is there. Got Micah Parsons now. A lot of young receivers in that room still. A lot of guys that are hurt, but you got Matthew Golden. You got Christian Watkins, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks. It's a young group of players trying to grow at the same time. But you got Josh Jacobs. You improve the offensive line, giving $72 million to Aaron Banks. What are you doing out there, Green Bay? But I like Jordan Love. I think he's a good quarterback that can be great throughout the year. And I would bank on Jordan Love being in the mix for a playoff spot every year he's healthy. And that's a big question for him, but has a great arm, great ball placement. It's really the decision making for him that is a big question at times. Overall, Jordan Love is a really good quarterback and inching towards being great in the NFL. The next quarterback in the tier list is Denver Broncos quarterback Bo Nix. And I know what you're saying. Really, Sterling? After 1 year? This really comes down to foundation with execution. You have Cortland Sutton. You improved your defense. You drafted some running backs. You have better receivers this year. You got yourself a tight end now. You got Sean Payton. Bo Nix balled out his rookie season. Now, do I ever think Bo Nix makes it past this tier? I don't. I think Bo Nix eventually slides down to a good quarterback. That's fine. That's fine. We all like good quarterbacks, right? They're stabilizing forces, as I've already said. But after last year and having Sean Payton in the room, good arm talent, good ball placement, Nix didn't really make too many big mistakes. Now, this is a big year for him in the growth of the Broncos because after a great rookie season, what's going to happen? We shall see. But I do like the potential of Bo Nix, but I don't think he ever escapes higher than this tier. I think he belongs in this where it's like, you know what? We can see a baseline for who you're going to be in the NFL for the next 5 years or so, but there may be something else there that we just don't see yet with Nix, hence why good with great potential. The next quarterback in the tier list is Justin Herbert, Los Angeles Chargers franchise quarterback, the man that everyone seemingly overrates in the NFL now. He has the arm talent. He has the legs. He has the mobility. He has the head coaching with Jim Harbaugh. You know, it's really hard to dislike the archetype of a quarterback like Justin Herbert. What's to dislike of the archetype? He's big, he's strong, he's athletic, he can make seemingly every throw in the book. However, you can maybe question the receivers he's had and the running game he's had and the coaching he's had and the defense he's had. And you can say, well, it's not really Herbert's fault. Yet, shouldn't elite quarterbacks be able to carry guys or pick guys up? I think this is a big year for Herbert. I think this is the year for him to finally break out of his shell of being a guy right now kind of hitting that glass ceiling of like, it's cracking, but you're kind of giving it some wimpy punches to break it. He hasn't really won much. I think having Harbaugh for year two, getting some running backs in the room, Najee Harris, who I think is back at practice, but the injuries are concerned, but you have Marion Hampton now. The defense is somewhat improved out there. You got Keenan Allen. You have Ladd McConkey. You got some guys out there. You did lose your left tackle, which certainly sucks for Rashawn Slater, but this to me is the year, the make or break for Herbert. Do you break that glass ceiling, or do you start just kind of, I can't break it. Well, you're not strong enough. I think this is a big year for him. I think he's good, but does have great potential. Can he finally break through that glass ceiling of his that he seemingly is like right up against, like, hey, let me out of here. The next quarterback on the tier list is going to be Houston Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud. I think C.J. Stroud, to me, last year, his entire offense was decimated with injuries. You lose. It felt like you lose Tank Dell, you lose Nico Collins, you Stephon Diggs, everyone's out. And they somehow find a way to be competitive throughout almost the entire season. There were some bad games for sure, some ugly losses, some really close wins that shouldn't have been that close. But I do think Stroud, coming into his year 3, had somewhat of a sophomore slump, made some mistakes, but I do think last year should not stain him as much as some think it should. I think he's a really good quarterback, but has really great potential. We saw it 2 years ago. He was phenomenal his rookie season. Year two, defenses kind of got a hold of him. He kind of lost his footing somewhat in the race, but I do think Stroud belongs in the good with great potential tier. Still dropped down from my list a little bit from last year. Was my sixth best quarterback coming into the year, I believe, last season. Definitely fell down a tad, but still in a good spot for him. A lot of room to grow for a very, very high potential quarterback. We have some questions here. Where does Trey Lance fit in the tier list? Trey Lance, I believe I said, was between backup with starting potential and backup and nothing more. Trey's Trey. I don't looked pretty good in the preseason, but I just don't know what else is there for him to do. I like Trey. He just kind of a backup and you hope. That's the tier. Backup and you hope maybe something happens for him, but not higher than that on the tier list. But we have one tier remaining. Where will Brock Purdy rank? Will he fall in good with great potential still? That's still open. Or is he going to be in the great tier? Not many guys left. Just 6 quarterbacks left. Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, Jayden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, and Brock Purdy. Where will the San Francisco 49ers quarterback rank in the tier list? Let's go ahead and rank our good friend Jalen Hurts, who after winning a Super Bowl, after having one of the worst statistical passing seasons last year, where will he rank on my list? I think we do have to give him some credit, and we're going to put him in the great tier. Jalen Hurts belongs in the great tier. I think Jalen Hurts is a heck of a quarterback. I really do. I maybe am hesitant with this because of the tush push and everything and having Saquon and A.J. Brown, but I'm not holding other quarterbacks back from the foundation. It's not the quarterback's fault. The GM sucks or the GM's great. Jalen came into a perfect situation. Dominant defense, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. They get Saquon Barkley. They have the best offensive line in football the last 5 years, if not the last decade or so. There's a reason Jalen Hurts has been great. However, I do think Hurts is in a group that is Hurts actually good with great potential, or is he great? I do think winning a Super Bowl and balling out in said Super Bowl matters. In fact, Hurts has been phenomenal in both Super Bowls in or against Kansas City in which he's played. So that does matter. He's been pretty good in the playoffs every single year he's been in them, outside of the one. But I do think Jalen Hurts belongs in the great tier. Championships matter. How you play in those games matter. He's balled out in both those games. Again, the regular season stats were not great by any means. I will not ignore that. Hurts was not good, was not great in the regular season, but when the going got tough and the games got close, Hurts was awesome in the playoffs last year for Philadelphia. He belongs in the great tier for me right now. He also, albeit amongst the current 5 guys at the top, he is the one I think could fall down this year. The Super Bowl hangover shall not be ignored, but Hurts is a great quarterback as of now. Could change, but right now, a great quarterback. Let's go ahead and let's rank Matthew Stafford. Where will he go? Does he stay in the retirement home? No, not so fast. I think Matthew Stafford belongs in the great tier simply out of respect. I did think that Stafford probably belongs in the good with great potential tier. The back's an issue. He's often injured. Every 2 years he gets hurt. He can get hurt this year. I do think that Stafford, though, when he's healthy, the ball placement, the trickery, the way he plays quarterback might be some of the best quarterbacking we've ever seen in the league the last 15 years or so. His Rams tenure has been incredible. Incredible. I do think that Stafford belongs in the great tier, but he's older now. I don't think he's as great as he once was, say in 2021. But when he's healthy, man, the no-look passes, the arm angles, Stafford is just an ageless wonder right now. And his arm can do wonders. He'll beat anybody. Sometimes with some luck, we saw it last year against San Francisco at Levi Stadium, or at SoFi Stadium. Well, actually, both those games. But Stafford still is a pretty good quarterback, and I think belongs out of respect in the great tier right now. The next quarterback on my list is Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels darn near won the MVP last year. Now, he wasn't going to, but I think Jayden Daniels was awesome. To me, Daniels is closer to the good with great potential tier. I do think the Commanders are going to play tougher opponents this year. They're going to have a harder schedule. They're going to lose some games they're not supposed to. Or Daniels bucks that trend and says, hey, I'm a good quarterback no matter what, and I belong in the great tier. Out of respect to him of what he did last year, the mobility, the arm talent mixed with some luck. Let's not ignore that. Jayden Daniels was awesome. Awesome last year. The playoffs may have been too much for him when he got deep in them, but I think Daniels was tremendous last year. It's hard to ignore elite talent when you see it. And I think more so now than ever, when quarterbacks are thrust into playing their year one, when maybe they aren't ready, we are seeing younger quarterbacks ascend these lists quicker than, say, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I think Daniels needs that respect from myself and others. Like, you know what? There is always room for regression, but after last year, man, it's hard to ignore how great he was. He belongs right now, at least, in my great tier. He was fun to watch. He can make almost any throw. He looked better last year with the Commanders than he did at college at LSU. And that's saying something. When you can do that, you can make that transition from college to the NFL and get better in the first year. He made scouting reports look wrong from day one in the NFL. That is impressive work. So Jayden Daniels belongs in my great tier. The next quarterback we're going to rank is Jared Goff. Where does Jared Goff rank? If it was his wife, it'd be an elite, but it's Jared Goff himself, the plain old dude. Is he good with great potential, or is he great? Let's debate this for a second, because Jared Goff has statistically been a really good quarterback the last couple of years in Detroit, was really good with the Rams too. However, there are some times that Goff does turn into a pumpkin. It isn't often, but there are some times. But you lose Ben Johnson, you just don't know how things are going to go. You bring in Tesla, you have St. Brown, you have Jameson Williams. Like, the weapons are still there. You have Montgomery, you have Gibbs. But you lost a couple offensive linemen this year. You have Laporta still, but I do think Goff is in a group for regression. Is he there yet? I don't know, but I am going to put Jared Goff at the very top of the good with great potential tier. I don't think Goff is great all the time. And I think for the most part, Goff is a good quarterback. You want quarterback in your team. He'd be good on 95% of teams in the NFL. However, is Goff in the tier with Jayden Daniels, with Matthew Stafford, with Jalen Hurts? I don't think so. I think he's more along the lines of a Herbert, a Bo Nix, a Jordan Love, or a CJ Stroud. He's a veteran. I think Goff has a higher ceiling or higher floor than every other quarterback in that tier group, Stroud, Herbert, Nix, and Love. But there's just something about Goff that holds him back. Maybe it's like the mobility isn't always there. Again, sometimes it's like a do or die with him of like, it's arm or nothing. Something about Jared Goff holds him back for me. I like Goff. I think he's a good quarterback. At times, he is a great fantasy quarterback to have, but this ain't fantasy. He just turns into pumpkins at times. There's a reason why the team has not gotten over the hump in Detroit. Jared Goff's a big reason for that. So he's a good with great potential quarterback. And that leaves us two. And then there was two. Where will Baker Mayfield or Brock Purdy land? Great tier or good with great potential? Let's rank both of these guys. Let's bring them both up. Where does Baker Mayfield go? Does Baker Mayfield belong in the good with great potential tier or the great tier? Let's bring both these guys up and debate, because you can argue these guys are very similar. They're both tough, scrappy SOBs that get the job done. They're underrated in their mobility. Where does Baker land, who has a heck of an arm? He, again, he's awesome. I love Baker. Baker is my guy. Boomer Sooner. Loved him coming out of college at Oklahoma. Was happy he brought the Browns a winning season. My college roommate was actively crying when Baker got the Browns a win because he's a big Browns fan. He was like out of his mind, like sobbing, like, I can't believe they did this. But Baker now in Tampa Bay has been tremendous with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, Rashad White. Where does he belong? Bucky Irving? Is he as good as Purdy? Is he worse than Purdy? We have one person saying that Baker should be below Brock Purdy. You know what? Let's see this right here. If we have Lamar Jackson at 1, Patrick Mahomes at 2, Josh Allen at 3, Joe Burrow at 4, Jalen Hurts at 5, Matthew Stafford at 6, and Jayden Daniels at 7. Both these guys could be in the great tier and be 8 and 9. Round out your top 10. I think as of right now, I'm going to piss off some people. I think Baker Mayfield and Brock Purdy belong in the great tier. And I think I have Baker Mayfield a smidge ahead of Brock Purdy. So that means I have Baker in the great tier as the 8th best quarterback in football and Brock in the great tier as the 9th best quarterback in football. Not too shabby. They're both top 10. I think that's a pretty good spot for Brock Purdy. I think he belongs in the great tier. I think Baker has been proven to be a way better quarterback than folks when they gave him credit for. I think Brock, I think Brock could succeed in Tampa Bay a little more than Baker could succeed in San Francisco. But they're different offenses. It's different things. They have different skill sets, different strengths, mind you. To me, this entire tier list, they are like neck in neck, where it's like you just pick one and I'm good with it. I love Brock Purdy. I love Baker Mayfield. Brock has been more successful in his short time in the NFL compared to Baker. In fact, almost all these guys, Brock has been more successful than. Like, Brock has been equally, if not more successful than Jared Goff has. And it's been 3 years of Brock Purdy. I think they're neck and neck. I think that's a really good top 10 to me. Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Hurts, Stafford, Daniels, Mayfield, Purdy, and Jared Goff. I think it's a pretty fair top 10. I think Baker and Purdy are right there. If Brock bounces back this year in a big way, I think it's, again, you swap those guys. But Brock's also had Christian McCaffrey. And, I guess last year wasn't great, but 2 years ago, a better Deebo Samuel, a healthy Brandon Ayuk, a Hall of Fame George Kittle. There's been that stuff, which I can't hurt Baker with that or hurt Brock with that, because Baker's also had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and a good defense around him. So again, they're neck and neck to me, but having to pick one, it's like picking your favorite kid. I don't know. They're kind of the same dude. They really are when it comes down to it. Two scrappy Midwest guys that get things done when it has to. Brock's more mobile than Baker, but Baker's probably has a better arm than Brock. It's like it really just comes down to pick your poison. They are like neck and neck to me, but both those guys belong inside the top 10. Don't get caught up in, oh, you picked Brock over Baker or Big over Brock. They're both in the top 10 over Jared Goff, Stroud, Herbert, Nix, Love, Prescott, Smith, and Lawrence. According to me, Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I think right there is a great place to end the stream because this is your tier list, the elite tier. Lamar Jackson, number 1 quarterback in the entire league. Behind him is Mahomes, Allen, and Joe Burrow. In the great tier, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, Jayden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, and Brock Purdy. Rounding out your top 10 is the good with great potential quarterback, Jared Goff. Behind him is CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, and Jordan Love. Then behind them in good, Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, and Trevor Lawrence. I will go down the rest of the tier list for you on the YouTube, but won't go through the entire thing. Outside of the you suck tier being Zach Wilson and Kenny Pickett. Tell me down below what you think of the tier list. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Drop your top 10 quarterbacks for me down below in the comments. Is Mahomes better than Jackson? Where does Purdy rank in all of this for you? Tell me down below in the comments. I want to thank everybody in the YouTube chat. Big Brick 84, Fish and Chips, Joseph, Khalil Young, Niner Goat 16, and many, many more of you. Rob D, all of you in there. Strawberry, you guys are great. I appreciate every single one of you. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. You can also follow us on social media at 49ers.access is the Instagram. 49ers_access is the X or Twitter, and use that promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, stay faithful.